Another metagame and another Memento underrated deck. Hello guys and welcome back to another cold episode. On today's episode, we're taking a look at the most underrated deck once again, which is Memento. If anyone knew how to play this deck, genuinely, this would be anywhere and everywhere. And yet, I never see this deck. If you don't know what deck we're talking about, it is Memento, or more specifically, Mementolon, which is technically what it's supposed to be. But the point is that they are all Memento monsters, and they pair very well with Goblins. If you're wondering about Goblins, I'll explain that in a second. But more specifically, let's talk about Memento. Memento is an archetype that is very powerful, that no one seems to understand what it does, or more specifically, elects not to play it. Unless they're actually a good player, then they will play it. Like Pack. However, Memento specifically is very powerful due to the fact that it just has a lot of gas. Let's quickly talk about the quick play spells. Bone Party allows you to destroy a Memento to either special summon or add it to your hand another Memento. And Fusion allows you to quick play Fusion. And you can also shuffle back cards from your grave if a card was destroyed this turn. If a Memento monster, I believe, was destroyed... No. If a monster in your possession was destroyed by card effect this turn, you can then shuffle Memento monsters from your grave into the deck as material. What this means is that there's not one, but two cards in Archetype that allow you to dodge effects. For example, Imperm, Veiler, etc. Very powerful. On top of that, the deck itself has a lot of gas. It's not something that can just be put out by one or two interactions, but it requires very specific interactions to really slow it down. Meaning you can oftentimes even just break boards with a bunch of engine, which also makes it very powerful in a best of one style format where you have the ability to, well, where you're forced more or less to go both first and second, meaning that having that engine that's very powerful is extremely nice, right? It's able to actually break boards just by seeing your engine. You don't have to see those hand traps, you don't have to see that non-engine, which is very solid. On top of that, it's very consistent. It does its combo very succinctly, and it does it very well. So, let's quickly talk about the actual rest of the Memento cards. Okay, we're playing a bunch of starters, which is Anduich and Darkblade and Goblin, we'll talk about in a second, and Tatsu, all of which basically do the combo in various different facets. But on top of that, we're also playing a few kind of bricks. They're not hard bricks nearly as much as some other decks, except for Akihiron. Akihiron is basically just like not very useful. I guess you can pop it with like Bone Party or Fusion. Technically, any of the Memento cards are kind of less bricks, but for the most part, Akihiron is like the big one. And, sorry, Combined Creation is like by far the biggest one. This one literally doesn't do anything in hand. But outside of that, we're also playing Gaddock and Sleepy, which are also kind of bricks as well. And then we're also playing Mace. Mace is kind of a starter and kind of a brick, so there's that. But more or less, they all accomplish a very powerful end board of a lot of recursion, mostly. They're not really going to interrupt the opponent in a large capacity. They're not going to like have like 4 Omni Negates or something else along those lines. But what they do have is a very difficult board to deal with. That is the biggest thing about it. However, that's not the only thing we're playing. As you can see, we're also playing Terror Top alongside Taka Tomborg and 2 Doug Charger. Now, why is this? This seems a bit strange, doesn't it? Well, the reason is because Goblin Biker Big Kabonga allows you to search out a Goblin monster, which then allows you to grab Doug Charger. Doug Charger can detach the material in order to special summon itself, allowing you, alongside, if you use the Terror Top in order to do this, you can then go Doug Charger in order to special summon itself and either search out Grand Entrance or, more likely, Grand Breakout. Grand Breakout says tribute a monster to special summon a Goblin monster from your deck. This includes Memento Goblin, which means you can also use this as a way to dodge. So what you can do is you can use basically Terror Top in order to grab out another way to get into your Memento line, and to grab additional ways to dodge effects, which is very solid. You can also play additional copies of Grand Breakout if you elect to, instead of, I don't know, Grand Entrance or Triple Tack or something else along those lines, as more ways to like dodge effects. However, that being said, we're also playing things like Droplet, so we still have a fair amount of ways to dodge effects, which notably also include things like the detonator pop. Detonator does target to pop, so you can just dodge the pop, which is not like terrible, but it's also not like insane. So there you go. That's generally what the deck aims to do. The only non-engine we're playing is Maxi, Ash, called by Droplet, as previously mentioned, and Triple Tack. That's it. As for the extra deck, it is also fairly simple. We're playing a lot of Xyz, but we're going to start here with the fusions. The only ones that matter are the 4 that we are playing, which is Twin Dragon, which is just an extender, allowing any 2 monsters to convert into full combo. We are playing the Memento Creation King, which allows you to send 3 monsters to the graveyard. Also, if it's in grave, you can banish it in order to grab up the field spell, which is fairly solid. On top of that, it is one of your end board pieces, because you can target an equal number of Memento cards and cards your opponent controls and destroy them, which is fairly solid. It's fairly solid. Also, sorry, Memento monsters, not cards. And then the one fusion that we're actually summoning off of Memento Fusion during the opponent's turn, well, sometimes, is Guardian Chimera, which we should all know what this does. You summon it with a spell card effect, and then you can draw cards equal to the number of cards used in hand, and pop cards equal to the number of cards used on field. Got it? Got it. As for the extra, as for the Xyz, we're playing Utopic Future as well as Utopic Draco Future, because we're also playing things like the Bamboozling Gossip Shadow, as well as Xyz Armor Torpedo, because there's a lot of ways for us to get 3s onto the field. Notably, Antwitch and Sleepy are 3s. We also have, of course, Doug Charger and Terror Top, which are also 3s, which is fairly solid. So there's a lot of ways for us to get additional 3s onto the field, so there's a lot of times that we can have multiple rank 3s to go into Utopic Draco Future. Of course, we're also playing the Big Gabonga, which is fairly solid. You can also, if a material is detached, attach a face-up monster on the field to this card, which is pretty solid. And then on top of that, it adds a Goblin monster, which is, again, fairly solid. Also, during the end phase, they can attach a Goblin monster from deck to this card, which means if this card is on the field, you can just, like, get rid of the Doug Charger so that you don't draw it, which is okay. Especially if you've already seen, like, Grand Breakout or Grand Entrance or something like that. We're also playing 1 Downard and Zeus, which is fairly solid, right? So that we have that extra material to Zeus away the field. Especially if you go, like, Big Gabonga and then just Downard, Zeus, deal with the field. It's pretty good. And then we have Typhon. We're only playing 3 Link monsters, which is Dark the Dark Charmer, Sprite Elf to give target protection, and SP Little Knight. A lot of our effects are specifically from the fusions, and we also have the ability to shuffle a lot of those back, which makes it a little bit better as well. So, there you go. Let's hop into the replays and show you how this deck performed. Alright, here we are going second, and this generally shows you the power of the engine itself, because we drew no non-engine. Okay? Now, granted, my opponent just passes here, but they do have the Roach, so let's see what we can accomplish here. We're going to start off here, and I'm going to normal summon Doug Charger here, which will probably be met by the Imperm, and that's fine because we do have the ability to go for Fusion. So we're going to go for the Fusion here, we're going to activate its effect in order to special summon here, and we're going to send away a bunch of cards, specifically allowing the Sleepy to stay in hand, sending Aki Huron, Terror Top, as well as the Doug Charger. Out comes Guardian Chimera, and we're going to activate its effect. We also grab the Grand Breakout. The opponent's going to go Purge, which kind of sucks. They're just going to pop it. That's fine. But we're going to then set 2, and then I realize I can actually just special summon Sleepy here, which is kind of necessary. So we're going to actually special summon the Sleepy here, and then pop it using the Fusion. Fusion also has the Graveyard effect to pop a card to search out a spell trap. Now, notably, this includes itself, so you can also search Fusion off of Fusion, which is kind of crazy. Now, this also allows us to then special summon the Aki Huron. It also allows us to send a card to the graveyard via Sleepy, but the opponent elects to call by the Sleepy as opposed to the Aki Huron. Now, had they actually negated or called by the Aki Huron, we're just kind of cooked there. Like, we can't really do anything. We do just kind of have to hope and pray that they don't have anything and pass the turn, and then hope on the following turn that we draw a monster, because if we don't, we lose. So that's fine, though, because we do actually get to the Aki Huron, because now it's on the field. So we're going to activate the effect because it's funny, and then just pass the turn. I don't want to lose to evenly matched, so we just pass the turn there. I could have dealt a bit of damage, but it's fine. The opponent just doesn't have anything again, so I'm going to elect to go and special summon the Goblin, and then go to Bone Party in order to special summon Gaddock. Gaddock is then going to add back the Bone Party, and Aki Huron is going to special summon itself back again. Pretty solid. Alright, let's see what we can accomplish with this. Grand Breakout is nice, but Grand Entrance is nice, but it's not too necessary, and it just gets purged again. Alright, sure. I'm gonna go for the Bone Party, popping specifically the Aki Huron, and go for the Ange Witch here. Now they actually do called by the Aki Huron, but that's fine because we are going to go for the Fusion since a card was destroyed, and then they activate an Imperm on the Ange Witch. Honestly, at this point, it doesn't matter. The Imperm just isn't gonna do anything, so sure. We're going to go for the Twin Dragon here, and then shuffling specifically back at the Aki Huron, so that Aki Huron can add back the Sleepy, since it was destroyed by card effect. Pretty solid. So, now we have Sleepy in hand, and we're going to activate the Twin Dragon on summon to grab up the Tatsu as well as the Goblin. Here, out comes the Tatsu, and at this point my opponent realizes the writing on the wall, because I have full combo, and they have nothing. So, good game. Alright, now here we are going first. Let's see what we can accomplish with this. This is overall a fairly decent hand, however it does kind of die to, like, Imperm. Anyway, we're gonna start off here with the, Memento Kalan, that one. It's fine. We're gonna go Ange Witch in order to grab up the Tatsu. Tatsu effect is going to activate, and we're going to pop itself in order to send Sleepy and Gaddock. This is generally the main combo you're going to go for. So, at this point, we get to go for the Gaddock here, as well as, since we already have the field spell, we're going to activate that in Chain as well. So we're gonna go Chain Link 1, Chain Link 2, Gaddock. Now, this allows us to special summon Sleepy and add back the Horse, which is pretty solid. So, we're going to fuse off all three of those in order to go into Creation King. Creation King effect is going to activate, and since we already have the field spell, normally what we would do is we would use the Creation King, and we would send Fusion, we would send another one of himself to grab up the field spell, and we would send the Aki Huron. So, all three of those are generally what we would send, right? However, because we already have the field spell, and because we still have Ange Witch on field, which has a second effect, we're actually instead going to send still Aki Huron. This card's very good. We're also going to send the Combined Creation, which is again very nice, and we're going to also send Goblin, because we can reborn the Goblin with the Ange Witch effect. So we're going to go for the Ange Witch here in order to reborn the Goblin, and then Goblin is that destruction effect is going to trigger Aki Huron to special summon itself. Now we can activate the Goblin effect in order to pop the Aki Huron and send Fusion to the graveyard alongside Mace. Aki Huron effect is going to activate, allowing us to add back the Fusion, which we then immediately can activate. Shuffling back 2 guys in order to go into Twin Dragon. Here we can activate the effect of the Twin Dragon in order to pop itself, and we're going to grab Goblin and Sleepy. What I should have done is actually shuffled back Mace there, so that we could add the Mace to the hand, but it doesn't really matter too much. So, we're going to then activate the Twin Dragon, which then allows us to special summon the Mace, and then Mace's effect will activate, adding Bone Party. Here we're going to activate the Bone Party in order to special summon Dark Blade. Dark Blade is just here so that we can add another guy to the grave, because the effect of Combined Creation forces us to shuffle back 5 other Memento monsters with different names in order to special summon itself from grave. So having more names is better. So we're just going to go for the Dark Blade here, which then special summons out a level 3 or lower. Generally, what you want to summon is Ange Witch here, or Ange Witch generally, because this is full combo with Dark Blade into Ange Witch. That's generally what you want to do. However, here, obviously, it makes more sense to go Gaddock, so that we can go into the level 2 requiring Sprite Elf, because for some reason this card still exists. Anyway, Gaddock is going to be special summoned, then we're going to pop it with the Fusion. Fusion is going to be added to the hand, and now we're going to shuffle back 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 in order to summon out the big boy. This guy has a fairly decent effect, but mostly it is just here as a big boy, and to get the specifically named Combined Creation to trigger this guy, which is fairly solid. However, on top of that, it does have an effect where once per turn, if an opponent activates a card or effect, you can special summon a Memento from hand or grave, which is nice. You just get additional recursion. Anyway, that's fine. During the end phase, we get to set the Bone Party, and we get to pass the turn. At this point, my opponent is going to reveal if they are on White Force. I'm going to activate the Ash Blossom. They have the Called By. Happens. That's fine. Knowing now that they don't have Called By, or at the very least they didn't use the Called By on the Gaddock, we get a special summon out the Gaddock here. My opponent's going to special summon here and grab a Stellar, and that's fine. We're going to go for the Gaddock here in order to grab a Mace, and then we're going to also special summon out the Goblin. Goblin's just here for fun. I'm going to immediately yoink the Stellar, and then my opponent's going to reveal that they are also on Centurion, which is fine. So I'm going to elect to pop all of these, and I do this wrong. This is just straight up wrong for me, and I'm going to play pretty terribly overall in this game, because I just elect not to actually think about what my opponent is doing. So I could have literally just waited for them to activate the Primera, and then popped it, and then it would have been dead, and they wouldn't have had anything. But I don't. I elect to instead activate the Combined Creation first, for no real reason. So they still get the Primera, And that's fine. We just special summon Gaddock here, and then activate the field spell. I'm like, okay, now seems like a good time to go for Guardian Chimera. I'm going to activate the effect of the Guardian Chimera. I'm going to pop 2. I'm going to draw a card. That's fine. Right, this card does have protection. If there's a Centurion monster, yeah, that's okay. Because at this point, what is my opponent to do? Like, genuinely asking, I don't even know what my opponent could do. They don't have the White Forest stuff, and they don't have access to the Centurion stuff, right? They already use their normal, they use their Centurion stuff, they elected to go Atri as opposed to the Trudea. I don't know why they elected to do that, but even if they had gone Trudea, the most that they're ending on is, like, a guy. But at that point, we really do have quite a lot that we can actually do here. If we elect to go Akihiron on the opponent's turn, sorry, on our turn, we can literally attack directly with 8,000 damage. Because Akihiron's effect allows level 8 or higher, sorry, level 9 or higher monsters, Memento monsters, or just monsters in general, to attack directly. So yeah, we had well over lethal there, or at least lethal there. And then on top of that, we had like full combo 2 times over and triple attack. There's not really anything that they could do at that point, even though I played horribly. That game was well and truly in our grasps. So, good game. Alright, and here we are once again going first. So, let's see what we can accomplish with this hand. It's pretty solid, but we're going to start out here with the Doug Charger. We're going to grab up the Grand Breakout. My opponent's going to go for the Droll. I'm going to go for the Call By. Yes, theoretically, we should save this for, like, a Maxi or something along those lines, but it's fine. We're going to go for the Goblin here. We're going to activate the effect of the Goblin, and we're going to pop in order to send 2, and then we're going to go for the Bone Party since we already have access to it. We ended up sending the Fusion and the Akihiron, and now we get to go for the Antwitch and chain block it with the Akihiron. Akihiron is going to just be on field, but at this point, my opponent realizes the writing on the wall and just concedes. Yeah, makes sense. This deck's kind of crazy. Alright, we're back with the deck, and honestly, this deck is very solid right now. I think it is a good pick overall for the current metagame. I don't think it's like the best deck, obviously, but it is comparable because the 2 best decks currently, which will be Ryziel and Malice, this deck does not lose to. It doesn't really lose to anything in particular, besides maybe like getting hand trapped like 4 times and then Tenpai dropping like Pydra on you. That's kind of it, right? But for the most part, like, it has plays around Maxi, Fuelos, and Perulia. It has ways to play around like pretty much everything. I guess Maxi is a little bit worse for you, but overall, like, it has the ability to play around pretty much anything as well. Imperm, Valor, Ash, Called By, etc. There's just like a ton of things that this plays around. On top of that, if you add in the Terror Top and Doug Charger stuff, you also have a better matchup into the Ryziel stuff, which can be a bit frustrating going second into, but again, paired alongside the Gabonga and what have you, it makes it a little bit stronger because you kind of force out a whole bunch of interactions from that and like from one card, which is fairly solid. On top of that, things like Droplet are very good in this deck, which makes it even better into like Ryziel, right? Because like you just immediately invalidate the detonator, which is pretty strong. And so all of that pairs fairly well with the current metagame. It also doesn't lose to Malice, which is something of note. In fact, it does have a fairly good matchup into Malice as well, due to the fact that, again, the engine itself is very powerful, and it can play into a lot of those established Malice boards, especially if you even remotely interact with them with like a Maxi or with like, of course, Ash or something else along those lines. Or if you end up drawing like a triple tack or a droplet or something else of that nature, you still have like a lot that you can do. And then of course, like, Zeus and Typhon are very strong when you have the ability to just like play on the opponent's turn with your quick play spells. So there's that. As for the overall enjoyment of this deck, I think it's very fun to play as well, because genuinely, there's a lot of nuance to each individual play. I've showcased this deck quite a few times, and the thing is, every time I've played it, I've gotten better at it, because it just has so much nuance to it that the more that you play, the better you get, and the stronger and stronger it becomes. And on top of that, it's just like a decently fun deck. I'm not going to say that it's like complicated or anything like that. I just think that it is a nuanced deck. It has like a lot going for it, and there's a lot of like different plays that you can go for depending on like what the opponent has or like the current metagame. So I think that's pretty cool, and overall I really enjoy this deck. I think you should play it. I think it's just like a solid deck right now. But yeah, that's gonna be it. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that you guys did indeed enjoy. If you did, I like it very much, so appreciate it, and remember to always stay frosty. Bye bye.